Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Sydney Summit session, where we are going to talk about how Stockland accelerated data-driven insights on AWS. My name is Praveen Kumar. I'm an analytics solutions architect at AWS. In my role, I work with customers to help modernize their data platform and extract value from the data. I'm privileged to share the stage with my co-speaker, Jenny, who would now introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Jenny Van Zyp, and I'm the General Manager for Data Science and Insights at Stockland.
Thank you, Jenny. Let me take you through the agenda first. So we're going to start by talking about who Stockland is. Next, we'll talk about the challenges related to Stockland on-premise data platform and some of their ambitious use cases. And then we'll look at target state data platform architecture on AWS, the implementation approach they took as part of their data transformation journey, and also talk about some of the core services that powers this data platform. Then we'll cover the outcomes from that project and summarize key learnings. And we'll conclude the session by talking about what's next at Stockland. With that, let me hand over to Jenny to take you through the first section of this presentation.
Thanks, Praveen. As one of Australia's largest diversified property groups, we have exceptional scale and a broad customer reach, with 1 in 5 Australians interacting with one of our assets across a range of sectors. We have a strong commitment to deliver the best residential communities and commercial assets to this large, diverse customer base. Stockland is also an established company with a rich 70-year history, but we still have ambitions to innovate for our customers, our shareholders, and the environment by delivering superior products and services to the market in a sustainable way and creating leading customer experiences. Data plays a key role in how we do this and how we differentiate ourselves from our competitors. Back in 2019, we set out on a journey to embrace a modern data platform so that we could achieve these ambitions. When we set out on this journey, the use of data for decision-making revolved around the data warehouse. Many businesses can relate to this story. You spend a lot of time, energy, and money in standing up your data warehouse, your single source of truth, the Holy Grail. And this is a critical step, of course, but we found that it was limited in its ability to allow us to extract the maximum value from data. We found that the data warehouse was necessary, but not sufficient. With intriguing new data sets emerging at an exponential rate, our set of use cases and potential users was growing too. Social media data, mobility data, geospatial data. Data was growing. And we knew that the technology to be able to work with this data was advancing too. But at the time, we didn't have the tools at Stockland to capitalize on this opportunity. And then there were outside pressures of increased regulation, such that our desire to innovate with data and democratize it needed to be balanced against protecting it, to ensure that the value that we were creating was sustainable in the long run. All of these factors led us to realize that we had an incredible opportunity in front of us that we needed to act on. And this is when we set out to modernize our data platform. I will now hand over to Praveen, who worked side by side with me at Stockland at the time and architected this transformation. And whilst he has since moved on to work for AWS, we still talk about him all the time, as you do with people that leave a lasting legacy at a company.
Thank you for your very kind words, Jenny. Jenny talked about a number of challenges related to Stockland's on-premise data platform. We see that these challenges are in fact quite common across various organizations. On-premise data platforms, whether it's data lake or data warehouse, they're expensive. They're difficult to scale and manage, and they also lack agility in keeping pace with the business innovation. Migrating to cloud frees up financial and staff resources so that the team can focus on building capabilities that differentiates their business. An IDC study done in 2018 found that enterprises who migrated their workloads to AWS saved on an average 30% in infrastructure cost. AWS makes it easier to migrate your analytics workloads, and with our purpose-built services, you get the best price performance, scalability at the lowest cost. In addition, AWS offers the broadest selections of tools and services for all your analytical needs, and it enables organizations of all sizes and industries to reinvent their business with data. And in light of all of these benefits, Stockland decided to move to modern data platform on AWS. Now, before the team started on their data transformation journey, they decided to incorporate a number of design principles that would guide their architectural decisions and help with choosing the right services and tools for their use cases. The first one is serverless. With a serverless-first approach, the team wanted to eliminate any effort related to infrastructure setup and management, and rather wanted to focus their efforts on building features and functionalities that matters to their own external customers. Serverless options are simple to use, and they provide you an easy to get started experience. And that was one of the key goals. Next was extensibility. So while the team wanted to start small, but they wanted to ensure that the platform remains future-proof and it can be easily extended to implement a diverse set of use cases. Jenny, as one of the key stakeholders of this platform, can you please share your thoughts on how the platform has evolved over time and what has been the team's experience?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll put it this way. I've been at Stockland for over 13 years, and we've delivered more value from data over the past 3 to 4 years since we implemented the platform than in the previous 10 years combined. The platform has definitely delivered on its promise of being scalable, and it's proven to pretty much handle every use case we've thrown its way.
That is great to hear. Next is use case driven. So when you are trying to set up data lake, we see organizations typically take two approaches. One is ingestion-based approach. The other is consumption-based approach. In case of ingestion-based approach, the teams try to ingest data from a variety of data sources, build pipelines, even if they may not have an immediate analytics or ML use case. We see that sometimes that approach can turn your data lake into data swamp, and you don't get a lot of benefits. On the other hand, the team at Stockland walked backwards from prioritized set of use cases and built relevant pipelines, ingested relevant data sets, and deployed solution. By doing so, the team wanted to deliver immediate business value and also improve user experience in an agile manner. Next is automation. So while working with their on-premise data platform, they had to deal with a number of processes that were manual in nature. And so the team knew that one of the biggest advantages of moving to cloud is you could leverage the power of automation. And so the team decided to automate many of these manual tasks. Examples include deployment activities such as CI/CD, regression testing, monitoring, and so on. By automating many of these manual tasks, the team wanted to boost developers' productivity as well as increase operational efficiency. On the topic of automation, Jenny, what has been your top observations on how the platform has performed before and after?
Yeah, sure. I'll speak to this in a little bit more detail later, but at a high level, we've seen significant cost savings and efficiencies across the board. For the team, it's been fantastic too. Our ETL processing times have reduced drastically, as have our development life cycles. This means that everybody's working more productively.
That's great. And the last one is decoupling. So whether you are decoupling compute from storage or decoupling various ingestion pipelines, the team wanted to build flexibility in the architecture as well as increase the reliability of the application. Next, Jenny is going to take us through the implementation approach that they took while doing this data transformation project.
Thanks, Praveen. Stockland implemented this transformation in 3 phases. The first phase was the pilot phase, and this is where we set out to establish the foundation and core services by working backwards from a specific use case. Picking the right use case was really important because not only did it have to be high value, it also needed to be relatively low effort and touch most of the core services. This phase also provided an opportunity for the team to learn about the available cloud services, which was another one of our goals. This was accomplished through a series of AWS immersion days and workshops, including hands-on labs. The upskilling component of this phase was really important in setting us up for the next phase, migration. In this phase, the team took the learnings and migrated the on-premise data warehouse to the cloud. But instead of a pure lift and shift, the team opted to re-architect the end-to-end solution so that we could take advantage of the full benefits of a cloud-native solution, keeping the business logic unchanged. That was his brilliant idea. This phase took 3 to 4 months. The final phase is where we find ourselves today and where we've been for the past few years, scaling. It's the funnest phase for sure, and I'll speak a little bit more about this later on in the presentation. But I did want to leave you with this and point something out. We delivered the first 2 phases of setting up the foundation and migrating an enterprise data warehouse to the cloud in under 6 months, which is pretty remarkable. It's also pretty remarkable if you think about what was happening at Stockland at the time. I still remember back in 2018, the first time I was presented with an architecture diagram of what a modern data platform was and what it offered. And I remember thinking, I want that, very strongly. But when I went back to the business and presented this idea, it was met with a little bit of resistance, well, quite a lot actually. It wasn't the right time at Stockland. We were in the middle of a large-scale ERP implementation at the time. So I got a bit of pushback. Luckily for us, a few months later, my colleague, who is in the audience here today, Sebastian Gray, had recently joined Stockland. And when I was talking to him about my frustrations and the opportunity I saw with the use cases and the limitations we had with our on-premise systems, he told me that we could get this modern data platform. And not only that, but that he could do it in under 6 months. I honestly didn't believe him. I thought it was too good to be true. I thought he was, a optimistic new hire, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and didn't know how things worked at Stockland, because I've been here for a long time. But he proved me wrong and got this program of work across the line, despite the odds. And he did this because he recognized, but more importantly, was able to communicate the strategic value we stood to gain from doing this implementation and doing it at that time. So yeah, I wouldn't be up here talking to you guys today if that had not happened.
Yeah, I remember that phase. It's incredible how much we are able to achieve in less than 6 months, and thanks to Sebastian. So now let's look at Stockland target state data platform architecture. As you can see on this architecture diagram, Amazon S3 as the data lake service is at the center of this architecture. The team ingests data from a variety of data sources. This includes SAP-based ERP application, a cloud CRM solution, and some of the other data sources such as social media feed, Google Analytics, and clickstream data coming from website. The team ingests data from the various sources to S3. Once data is in S3, they use purpose-built tools to process that data. And this could involve cleaning the data set, flattening the data set, removing PII, as well as preparing that data set for analytics and machine learning. The team mainly uses 2 consumption services to generate insights. So one is Redshift for BI and data warehousing, and Amazon SageMaker for machine learning use cases. On the right, you see the various user personas who interact with the platform. So the examples are a line of business users who prefer a no-code, low-code sort of interface, data scientists, so advanced UI users, as well as data analysts. The team uses Power BI, one of our partner services, for all their reporting and visualization. And Power BI has got native integration with many of our analytics services. Now I'm going to cover 3 core services that powers Stockland's data platform. So to start with, the team uses Amazon S3 as their data lake service. Amazon S3 allows them to store data in a variety of formats. So there's structured formats, semi-structured, unstructured formats. And Amazon S3 also allows them to store data in open formats. And that has a couple of key advantages. The first one is, you have got the flexibility of using compute engine of your choice. And S3 also, because the data is an open format, it allows for portability and avoids any sort of vendor lock-in. The team has used Amazon S3 to deliver on many of the use cases that was just not possible before. So some of the examples are schema evolution and validation, processing highly nested semi-structured data set coming from social media feeds. And one of the interesting use cases was generating sentiment analysis on top of text data coming from website. And all of these pipelines were serverless, which was one of the key theme across this whole data platform. Next important service, Amazon Redshift, which the team uses for BI, dashboarding, as well as self-service analytics use case. With Amazon Redshift, you can use familiar SQL to scale and run your analytics workloads in a matter of seconds without having to manage any underlying infrastructure. The team uses many of the functionality within Redshift to scale and optimize their data warehousing environment. So, for example, they use elastic resizing, which allows you to adjust the compute capacity based on workload requirement, such as BI and ETL, and that results in cost savings. The team uses a lot of automation within Redshift to save on administrative costs. And they are also looking at implementing newer capabilities like data sharing and serverless to further optimize and scale their BI environment. The last one I want to talk about is Amazon SageMaker. So the team uses Amazon SageMaker for their ML use cases. Amazon SageMaker is a fully managed machine learning service that allows you to build, train, deploy, and ML models at scale for a large range of use cases. The team has used Amazon SageMaker to deliver many of the solutions, for example, pricing analytics, propensity modeling, and they have recently implemented SageMaker Pipeline for end-to-end orchestration, which helps them further automate and standardize their machine learning lifecycle. Next, I'm going to hand over to Jenny to talk about the results and some of the learnings from this project.
Thank you. So as evidenced by the handful of KPIs and outcomes you can see on this slide, there's no question that this implementation was a huge success. There were a lot of operational efficiencies gained straight away, pretty much, but the most important benefit has been felt around the capability gains we've made. Now we're able to work with pretty much any kind of data, and this has unlocked a lot of use cases and value for the organization. Also, our data scientists can experiment with machine learning models a lot quicker, which leads to faster innovation. And on the topic of speed, we can now deploy models a lot quicker too. It used to take us upwards of 9 months to put a model into production, and now we can do it in a matter of weeks. This has done wonders in our ability to keep stakeholders engaged to ensure that our solutions have high adoption. And finally, it has been a game changer in our ability to attract and retain talent. It's amazing what having state-of-the-art tooling can do in the people space. That's a whole topic in and of itself, though. Today, we can say that technology is no longer a constraint in our efforts to extract value from data. Whilst the work is never done here, it's really exciting to be in a position where our only limitation is our desire to improve. You can see the range of capabilities that we've built since deploying our modern data platform, from advanced customer analytics, which requires a lot of complex data blending, to self-service and machine learning workflows. But probably one of the most exciting things we've enabled through the platform in the last 12 to 18 months is custom data-driven apps. Whilst all the capabilities shown here have enabled the business in so many ways, we found that there are certain processes and teams that simply cannot be revolutionized with a dashboard or an AI model alone. There are certain parts of the business that require bespoke applications that can encapsulate and streamline every step of their workflow, from data capture through to decision support. Unleashing this type of capability selectively in your business can prove to be a real source of competitive advantage. Now I'll talk about key learnings. There have been a lot of learnings along the way, and they're the obvious things that you've heard about, read about, experienced yourselves, or heard about today. Things like the importance of having executive sponsorship and a clear strategy, or how critical data governance is in ensuring that you have quality inputs and information security. But rather than spending time going over potentially familiar ground, I wanted to pull out the key learnings that were less obvious to us from the outset and a bit more difficult to put into place, because these have turned out to be the things that have been and continue to be the keys to our success. I also think that these are lessons that are applicable no matter where you are in your journey, whether you're just starting out or you're really advanced. Firstly, it's about solving the right problems. There are countless ways where data stands to add value to your organization, but you can't do everything. Resources are limited, so you have to prioritize. And doing so with a commercial lens and taking a value driver approach can really help you find those needle movers in the organization. As an example for us, in the early days, in retrospect, we found that we were spending the bulk of our time optimizing less than 10% of the value chain. And we did this because these were areas where there was a lot of data, engaged stakeholders rearing to go, the low-hanging fruit. And look, it's great to start with low-hanging fruit. It's doable, and you start to build a good reputation for data, which is important. But my advice is not to get too comfortable here. You have to quickly move on to areas where data can really give you a competitive advantage. And these are areas where it's typically harder and there's bigger challenges. Areas where there's no data or limited data, or you have stakeholders who are less willing to change and embrace data, or where there's simply a lot harder problems to solve. But my advice is that these are the areas where you stand to make the biggest impact if you manage to crack those nuts. And it's very easy to say, put it in the too hard bucket. I need some water.
Water? Yeah.
Sorry. Thanks. Secondly, you want to solve these problems in the right way. That's better. Working with data, there's often 50 ways that you can solve a problem or exploit an opportunity. To find the best way, you really need to understand the business metrics that you're trying to influence, but equally important is the decision makers that you're trying to help. What do they want? What do they need? Often these can be two very different things. Taking the time upfront to unpack this will save you a lot of time in the longer run, and your solution will have a greater impact. One example of this for us is how we've learned to prioritize explainability and human in the loop over black box models, which are often more accurate. This has really helped us gain traction with stakeholders and improve adoption, since we've come to realize that a lot of our stakeholders, especially those that make really big, important decisions, are more interested in the insights than in the answers. This also really helps with building trust, which is a common challenge in the data and machine learning world, as many of you know. And finally, another really meaningful learning for us has been the importance of data product management. It's not enough to deliver a successful project to the business and hand it over. Data solutions need to be treated as products with life cycles that require maintenance and ongoing attention. From a technical point of view, if you think about your models, they need to continue to perform, even as the business grows and changes and the data changes. Otherwise, you run the risk of having space junk floating out there in the wild, and that's not good. From a stakeholder point of view, these are your customers. Stay close to them. Measure adoption, measure impact, measure customer satisfaction, train them, retrain them. This is time well spent. A formalized program for product management is what keeps these solutions alive and ensures that they continue to add value. And this means new skills and roles within or around the data team. The common theme around these three key learnings is data is a team sport. This means that business partnering and being able to successfully build cross-functional teams is really critical. Also, in a team sport, everybody on the field needs to want to be there. Of course, the data and the tech teams are there. This is our day jobs, right? We're geared up, we're warmed up, we're ready to go. But how do we get the business players on the field with the same level of commitment? Because this requires a mindset shift, which I'll touch on later. But in a team sport, everybody needs to treat the work with the same level of priority, and they need to be able to communicate effectively with each other. Aligning team KPIs and bridging the language gap can go a long way in achieving this cohesion. We've found that analytics translators are worth their weight in gold, good ones, in bringing teams together and enabling data as a team sport.
Water.
Not the water boy. He's actually a genius who implemented this whole transformation. Thanks, Praveen. The future is really about continuing to deliver against our always increasing ambitions to be a data-driven, customer-centric organization. As I've mentioned a few times now, the customer is really at the center of everything that we do. And so we need to continuously spend time in understanding them deeply and staying up to date on their ever-changing needs and preferences. To continue to deliver on this, we are prioritizing our efforts around 3 key areas, building on the strong foundations that I've spoken about today. We have spoken about today. Where's the slide?
Go next.
First, we need to make sure our people have the skills to be able to use the data and apply the insights to their day-to-day decision-making. And I'm not talking about, a company-wide program to teach everyone how to code in Python, although that would be fun. We're talking about tailored, human-centric approach to lifting data skills to the level where they need to be at. And importantly, so that we can shift those mindsets. Secondly, we're looking for new ways to enhance our insights around another very important customer, the environment, by leveraging non-traditional data sets and geospatial information to better understand the existing and potential impact of our actions on the environment, and by extension, society at large. This is one example that falls into that really hard but worth it bucket that I spoke about earlier. The data is very hard there. And lastly, we're looking to extend our insights capabilities to our customers so that not only Stockland can make better decisions, which benefits our customers, but also so that they can make better decisions too. This applies to our B2C and our B2B customer base, who make very important decisions with us every day and within the property ecosystem. And finding ways that we can leverage our insights to improve their outcomes is another big opportunity space for us as well. Thank you all. It's great to see so many faces in the audience, and thanks for seeing our presentation. Over to you, Praveen.
Thanks, Jenny, for sharing Stockland's incredible data transformation journey with us. It's fascinating to see how far the platform has come along, from BI and reporting to building ML use cases, creating data products, developing custom analytics apps. I think one of the metrics that stood out for me is that speed of experimentation, where it used to take months to deploy a model, and now you're doing it in weeks, and that sort of says volume. Thanks again for sharing this journey, and thanks for the trust and partnership. If you'd like to embark on a similar data transformation journey, please visit skillbuilder.aws, where you can access 100+ digital courses on data analytics ML. It also includes hands-on labs, immersion days, and will provide you a role-based gaming experience. Finally, thank you. That's a wrap-up from us today. We hope you have enjoyed our session. We really appreciate if you could fill up the feedback survey. That will help us improve your experience in the future. Thank you, and have a great rest of the summit.